And welcome, everyone, to a first-of-its-kind draft preview show as we get ready to find out who the Detroit Tigers are going to take at that number one slot. Coverage coming up in just about an hour from now on MLB Network and ESPN, and we couldn't be happier to be joined by my counterpart on the television side, Matt Shepard, Fox Sports Detroit. How are you, Matt?
Dan, I miss you. I'm going to try and control my enthusiasm because I am so fired up for this first-time event to be able to talk about the Major League Baseball draft and some of the really good young prospects within the Tigers organization. It's going to be awesome.
And Matt, as we look ahead to this draft, we said a first-of-a-kind streaming event leading up to it, and really this is a first-of-a-kind draft, isn't it? I mean, this is like no other. Typical year is 40 rounds. This year, 5 rounds.
Yeah, and Detroit has 4 picks in the top 75, Dan. Detroit has 6 picks overall. Think about it this way. You and I cover all kinds of sports, right? If you told me that my favorite football team had 4 picks in the top 75, you and I couldn't stop taking phone calls all day long, right? Well, the Tigers are doing the very same thing. This is a very strong draft for pitching, but fortunately for Detroit, the 2 best players are position players. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily they're going to take one. It's whoever they have highest on their draft board. But when you look at Austin Martin out of Vanderbilt, who led his team to a national championship a year ago, has a great hitting eye, doesn't have the power that a Spenser Torkelson of Arizona State has. And then you look at Torkelson and you see how often he gets on base. The power is there for sure, as evident by his record-breaking freshman home run record that he shattered of Barry Bonds and almost beat Bob Horner's all-time ASU home run record. But the fact that he gets on as often as he does, the fact that he has plate discipline, and he's actually a plus defensive player at first. I know he played in the Cape Cod League for a couple of summers, and I used to go there every single summer with my family. You see some of the best college prospects in all the country playing at the Cape Cod League. He played there 2 summers and played outfield. So he's more athletic than people give him credit for as just a slug of a first baseman. The question is, will Detroit make history? Adrian Gonzalez is the last first baseman taken first overall, but he was taken first overall out of high school in 2000 by the Marlins. No college first baseman, no first baseman who hits right-handed has ever been drafted number 1 overall. So you might see a little history here as well, with the Tigers possibly taking a guy like Spenser Torkelson.
So we've got the top 3. Everybody, I mean, we don't know. It certainly looks like Spenser Torkelson at 1-1. That seems to be the consensus. But it's these 3 guys. It's down to these 3 guys. I think everybody can agree on that. And Matt, you've talked a little bit about the first 2 on this list, Spenser Torkelson, Austin Martin at Vanderbilt. He can play all over by most accounts. And actually, some had him at number 1, the Tigers picking him at number 1. But I think that has really changed over the last probably last few weeks. Certainly, everybody seems to be settling on Spenser Torkelson. And then Asa Lacy is somebody not to forget about, because in another year, he might have gone number 1.
Well, he can command 3 different pitches. He throws already in the mid to high 90s in a fastball. Emerson Hancock is a right-handed pitcher out of Georgia. He, after last season, was viewed by many as the preseason first overall, but he struggled early on for the Bulldogs. And then Nick Gonzalez is a really good-looking second baseman out of New Mexico State. Now, he doesn't play the same type of talent that a guy like Austin Martin does, but those could be, right there, the 5 first names chosen in this year's draft. But like we said earlier, a really deep draft as far as pitching is concerned. And my bet is, Dan, they've got draft picks at 1 and then 38 and then 62 at 74. They're going to get an opportunity not just to get a really good pitcher, but they're going to get a chance or 2 to get another really good position player for them.
Well, to give us some insight into what the Tigers might be able to accomplish tonight, again, the draft starting in less than an hour now, we are joined by Tigers general manager Al Avila and the director of amateur scouting for the Tigers, Scott Pleiss. Well, Al and Scott, thank you so much for joining us on this very exciting evening for the Tigers franchise and for Tigers fans. The world wants to know, number 1 overall pick, who's it going to be and why?
Well, Scott, I mean, obviously, if you want to tell them, it's up to you, but I think we should wait. We're still actually we just got off of a Zoom call Scott and I, with our cross checkers, our analysts, and we're still really going through a lot of names. Not just for the first pick, but also for the
Sure.
the following picks after that.
I will say this, in all seriousness, this is an exciting night, isn't it? I mean, you have a chance to add a player at the top. Everybody agrees this is a deep draft, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on that. But you've got somebody you can add at the top with that number 1 pick, whoever it is, who can be on the fast track to the major leagues. And then I know it's only 4 more rounds, but in the next 4 rounds, add some serious talent to this organization. It just seems like it's an exciting night.
Yeah, I think that's right. And it's always exciting to do this. And Al and I have done a few together, so that's good. But when you're picking 1-1, it's always a little different. And where you got a chance to add impact to the organization, which is always good. And it is a deep draft. So even though it is 5 rounds, we'll have an opportunity to really dive in there and get some talent for the organization. So we are very excited about it.
Actually, Scott mentioned this last week, I think, in an interview, where when you're picking high in the draft, you obviously want to bring in the best talent. It's not so much you're looking to scout for need, you're looking for the best talent to bring into the organization. If so it happens that best talent is what you need, then it's a perfect marriage. It's a perfect situation. So, and that's why we have to be very careful in how we go about it. But there's a lot of intangibles. There's a lot of other factors that, that go into making that final decision. Things can happen late that can change the course of what you're thinking and planning.
Guys, we've heard the names, right? We've heard Spenser Torkelson. We've heard Austin Martin. We've heard Asa Lacy, Emerson Hancock, Nick Gonzalez, Zach Veen, whoever it may be. The thing that I've noticed most, and I just heard an interview with Tracy Smith, the Arizona head coach, about Spenser Torkelson. It seems like each of these guys have that work ethic, have that character that the Tigers organization is very prideful of. Scott, as you analyze the players, how much does that go into your thought process in addition to their skill set?
Well, the makeup is a huge part of it, and the work ethic and what type of drive these players have, because they could have all the talent in the world. If they don't have the makeup and the drive and the willingness to do whatever it takes to be an impact type player, it just isn't going to happen. So, and these guys are risen to the top for a reason. They have all those things. So, huge part of that.
How difficult in this year, guys, was it to, because of the things basically shutting down in March, you weren't able to scout some high schoolers that I'm sure you would have been interested in. You weren't able to maybe get as big an in-depth look at some of the guys you're considering at 1-1. How much did it affect your prep in terms of both scouting the physical and what Matt just talked about, the character of the person? Or did you really feel, because of what you said, Al, that you've done a lot of that homework already?
This is an area where it's good to have the boots on the ground, because what they've been doing now is reaching out to the players and having Zoom calls with the players, phone calls with the players, even FaceTime with the players that they're interested in, the families, the coaching staff, things of that nature. So with a high school player, and Scott can answer that even better than I can, because actually we were just on the Zoom calls earlier today, because there are high school players on the board that are good, and except that some of them didn't get to play this year. So even though you might have liked them coming into this draft as a possible top pick, they didn't play this year. So what do you do with that? And so it's a fine line, and that's part of the discussions that we have.
You guys get this question all the time, the difference between drafting for need and drafting best player. I think, Scott, you and I have talked in the past about always going for best player, but how different is it when you're drafting 1-1 in that situation, if at all?
Well, I've said this a few times, and Al alluded to it before. You have to take the best player. And if it fits a need, it's best case scenario. But if you're just going off need and you grab a guy off of need, you're really, especially picking 1-1, you're probably going to pass up a really good player that you should have thought about. So And it's the best marriage when it's exactly what you needed at the time was the best player. So that's what you're hoping.
Before we let you go, give fans a feel. Al, you've said that things can change even in the final days and hours after all the work you've done and all the analysis you've done. Give fans a feel for just some of the things that you kind of weigh that can change in the final hours. And maybe it even happened, maybe it didn't happen in 2018, but it really is a real thing, isn't it, when you start having these discussions?
It is real. It is real. And I don't think the average person realizes everything that we put into it as far as the possibilities of different scenarios. Lucky for us, so in our position, we like a lot of players.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, after we picked the first player, the second day we're going to like that player too, and so on and so on. So we feel fortunate that obviously we're in a position. We had to suffer for it to be in this position, but now we're going to make the most of it, and that's what makes it exciting. And really, quite frankly, that's part of the process here.
You guys have 5 rounds, 6 picks. What would you like to address?
Best player for sure. I know that's probably not the answer you want. We'd like to, you try not to get too focused on one thing or another. You can't, it's so we pick 1-1 and we do pick the first pick the second day, which really helps plan for which way you want to go. And every pick might change a little bit just because of who we took before them. So you get to plan for that. So it's hard you try to orchestrate it. Doesn't always work out the way you want it to. So you don't want to get, when you want to get a variety of talent, you don't want to get all the same stuff. You want to get a little bit of everything, but it's got to fit in the type of player that he is.
What will happen, Matt, in a short draft like this, obviously we'll be prepared to we'll know who the first pick is going to be for sure. We wait out the whole night. Once the draft is over, we'll see what's, the guys that are left. We'll reassess, okay, and then we'll put back on top of the board the best player there. We'll take that guy the next day, first pick. Then after that, obviously, as players come off the board, then Scott and his guys will go into action and get the best guy that we feel is coming up next. And we will have that pref list in order. But as the draft goes along, things can change along the way. And can't discuss all the things that could happen along the way, but things do change, and guys do get moved around a little bit. But at the end of the day, the guy we take is the guy we're going to like the most at that point.
We want to thank you both, Tigers General Manager Al Avila, Director of Amateur Scouting Scott Place, for joining us tonight. Very exciting night for the Tigers franchise. Can't wait to see who's there at 1-1 and then the 4 rounds that will follow. Thanks again, you guys, and have fun, if that's the right way to put it, for the next few days. Right now, let's send it over to Heather Park for our first Tigers Draft Trivia Challenge, the first of 2 tonight. Heather?
Thank you, Dan and Matt. Joining me now are 2 members of the Detroit Tigers 1901 Society, Ron Sangster and Michelle Gunkelman. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good, Ron?
Great. How are you?
Doing good, Michelle. So this is going to be fun. You guys are going to be part of my Detroit Tigers Trivia Challenge. Now, it's going to be tough. So, Ron, how are you feeling? Are you ready for this challenge?
I'm nervous, but I'm ready.
Don't be nervous, Ron. You got this. Hey, how long have you been a season ticket holder, Ron?
2007.
So you know a lot of Tigers trivia. I think you're going to be okay. And Michelle, what about you? How long have you been a season ticket holder?
I've been a season ticket holder since 2014.
So you're going to have some knowledge too. So Michelle, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you feeling for this Tigers Trivia Challenge?
I'd say I'm a 5.
That's pretty good. I like it. All right, here we go. Here's your first challenge. This muscular high school infielder was the Tigers' first round pick in 1974.
Lance Parrish.
Oh, Michelle, you got in there quickly. Lance Parrish is correct. You guys didn't even need the 3 clues. Nice job, Michelle. 1 point for you, but there's more game to be played. All right, let's move on to question number 2. The Tigers picked this high school shortstop in the 2nd round of the 1976 draft. He made Major League debut in 1977. Ron, it is Alan Trammell. Nice job. We're all tied up. Score is even. Let's move on. Question number 3. The Tigers picked this outfielder in the first round of the 1979 draft.
Rick Leach.
Whoa! Michelle! You got it! Rick Leach. You guys know your stuff. All right. 2-1. Michelle's in the lead. Here we go. We're moving on. In 1990, the Tigers made this two-sport athlete the second overall pick of the MLB Draft.
Tony Clark.
Oh, yes! It is Tony Clark. Whoa. You guys are making this an exciting game. We're coming down to this very, very last challenge. Oh, Michelle is putting on her thinking tiara.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, she's getting competitive. All right, here we go. Down to the wire. Last question. This 5-tool outfielder was the Tigers' first-round pick in 2005.
Cameron Maben.
Michelle, I think I heard you. I think I heard you, and I think your tiara definitely helped. It is Cameron Maben. Congratulations, Michelle. You guys are awesome. We didn't even need the hints. You knew your Tigers trivia. Nice job. And guess what? Just for playing, both of you are going home with a Ron Gardenhire autographed baseball. Congratulations, you guys. All right, back to you, Dan and Matt.
All right, Heather, thank you so much. We'll see you a little bit later on in the show. We couldn't be happier right now to be joined by the guy you want to talk to on draft day, and that is a guy who's been doing this for a long time. Senior writer at MLB Pipeline, Jim Callis, who's been analyzing and looking at prospects and trying to figure out strengths of organizations for over 30 years. Jim, great to have you on the show tonight. And I just wanted to start with the idea of, as the Tigers have gone, we've seen them gone from the bottom of the organization rankings by MLB Pipeline. They were 30th not that long ago, within the last 5 years, to 5th in the latest rankings by MLB Pipeline. Give fans a feel for all the things that you consider as you rank organizations, because that's an exciting spot to hold for Tiger fans.
Yeah, and it's crazy because, I mean, even going back to my years at Baseball America, I got to Baseball America full-time in 1989. I think they started ranking farm systems in 1984. And for whatever reason, even when the Tigers had good major league teams, we never ranked the Tigers very high. I mean, consistently, it was the Tigers and Phillies most years would be toward the bottom. So we have them at number 5 in our rankings, MLB Pipeline right now. There's only been one time since Baseball America, going back to my time there in 1984, ranked the Tigers, that they even ranked in the top 10, just once before this year, which is crazy because 84 to 2019, that's 36 years of ranking farm systems. And so when we do these rankings, I mean, ultimately we're looking at long-term major league talent, and you factor, you know, the quality of talent, not just the top 100 prospects of whom the Tigers have several now, but also the depth of the farm system, the balance between hitting and pitching, where the guys are in their farm system, because it's easy to get excited about guys when they're new and they haven't had a chance to fail. But when you see the Casey Mizes and the Matt Mannings and the Tarek Skubals and on and on and on have success at the upper levels, you feel even better about them. So there's a lot of things. I mean, it's an inexact science. And I always make the joke that, you know, whenever anybody does farm system rankings, one team's like, yeah, they got it right. And 29 teams say, hey, you have us ranked too low. And that is kind of the nature of it. Like, nothing gets people more worked up, like, of all the rankings that we do, than where we rank their farm system. That gets people fired up. Like, most people feel like they're too low. But no, the Tigers, I mean, obviously it's been a rebuilding process. They've had some high picks. They've made some trades, but I mean, the farm system is probably as strong as I can remember it since I've been covering stuff for over 30 years. It's probably the best their farm system has ever been during that entire time.
Jim, you mentioned some of the pitching prospects with Mize and Manning, Fado, Skubal, for example. But what about the position players? Who do you see as rising within this system that excites you most?
Well, I mean, I think that the one answer easily is Riley Greene. You know, he was number 5 overall pick in last year's draft. You know, the best day I spent spring training, and spring training feels like it was like a year ago, doesn't it now at this point? Like, it seems like it's so long ago. I was at Lakeland. I got to see an inter-squad game on the backfields. It was early, so it was like the fact that they were playing a minor league inter-squad game was great. And then I got to see, I think, Mize, Manning, and Fado all pitched against the Yankees. And it was like the best day I had spring training this year. And then a week later, when I was going to go to Arizona, it got shut down. But I just think Riley, the bat is so good. And then beyond him, I mean, you guys like Isaac Paredes, Willie Castro, Das Cameron, they're, obviously pretty close to the big leagues at this point. But I think Riley just, far and away stands out the most. Jake Rogers is another guy who's close. The guys who are a little further away, like Parker Meadows and Wensil Perez, it'll be interesting to see what becomes of them. But, I do think they're going to use the number one pick on a pretty special bat, and they'll have a little bit more balance between the superstar pitchers and the superstar hitters in the system.
What kind of chance do they have, as you said, the draft is deep, it's mostly pitcher heavy, to address maybe some of the weaknesses in the organization, or at least the area that needs to be built up the most, which is on the hitting side of the equation?
David Chad, Scott Place, and all those guys have been doing this for a long time. And I'm sure you're going to interview some of them, or in probably Howell Ray, they'll probably tell you that they're not necessarily looking for specific positions. You kind of got to set up your board and let the draft come to you. I think they'll go position player at 1-1, and then I think they'll kind of see how it falls. Now, given that the strength of this draft is college pitching, I would suspect they'll get at least a pitcher or two out of those 6 picks. But I don't think they'll necessarily look at it like, hey, we need position players, so let's do that. Because I don't have the draft order perfectly memorized now. I think they pick 38 as their second pick, the first pick of the second round.
Right.
And if at 38, the 3 best guys on their board are college pitchers, even though they have all these advanced pitchers who are knocking on the door, I think they'll take the college pitcher. So we're talking about like a draft where you're going to have only 6 picks.
I know.
I mean, again, you have to let it come to you, but I'll bet it'll be like 50-50. I wouldn't be surprised if they wound up with 3 hitters and 3 pitchers. But last year was the worst group of pitching prospects, like quality pitching prospects I can remember in 30 years. And a lot of evaluators would say the same thing. And I think that goes to show you they let the board dictate. They lined the guys up. The pitching was lacking, and they went with a lot of these offensive players. So I think they'll just probably do that again this year. You line the players up, and once your turn to pick, you look at who's on the board and make your decision.
We had the chance to talk a little bit a few days ago, Jim. You really liked, it's worth reviewing because it was fun. It got me excited. You really like Spenser Torkelson in terms of the impact that he can have at the major league level and in the not too distant future.
I had one guy say that they thought he could go to the big leagues right now, that Detroit could draft him. I mean, you probably wouldn't do that for service time reasons, but put him in the big leagues right now, he'd be better than any first baseman they got. I mean, the power is the most obvious tool. This is a guy who broke Barry Bonds' freshman home run record at Arizona State. He led the Pac-12 2 years in a row. He almost broke Bob Horner's career record, but the season ended prematurely this year, or he would have broken it. But it's not just the power. The guy's a really gifted hitter. It's great plate discipline. He's the type of guy who can fall behind the count and then take a slider the other way for a home run. And I actually think his athleticism is a little underrated too. He might be first base only, and I don't think it matters because you're talking special bat. But he might be able to play third. He might be able to play left. But the consensus from talking to people is he might be the best all-around offensive player when you talk about those 3 factors: bat, power, discipline. Come out of the draft since Mark Teixeira in 2001. And somebody asked, okay, if Torkelson goes number 1, where would he rank on our Tigers prospect list? And I don't do the ranking, so it's not my decision. The Tigers aren't one of the teams that I do. And I said, you know what? I mean, I really like Casey Mize. But I am so all in on Spenser Torkelson's bat. I would put Spenser Torkelson ahead of Casey Mize if I were doing the Tigers list. We'll just keep throwing hyperbole out here. I mean, he theoretically could be like a 300, 35, 40 home run guy. His bat could be. I'm not saying he's going to be this good, but like Miguel Cabrera-esque in his prime.
That's impressive. I mean, those are some impressive people that you've kind of used in the same sentence with this kid. And he's been, as you said, he's got a really good eye. He seems like a really good kid. Austin Martin, you've mentioned. Asa Lacy is another guy, the lefty, right out of Texas A&M. But when you try to determine whether a team should go with position of need or just best player, what do you think is the difference between the two and how close that razor-thin margin might be for the Tigers at 1 overall?
Okay, well, in the first round, and especially if you're picking 1-1, you 100% have to take the best available player. But the example I would use is, let's say they had an all-star at first base that the Tigers did right now. I still would draft Spenser Torkelson because he might be able to play third. Somebody's going to play DH. Torkelson could play left field. Like, the bat's that special. So I know they would tell you, like, especially at 1-1, they're 100% taking the best player and not worrying about need. We talked about all their pitching. If they thought Asa Lacy was the best player in the draft, I think they take Asa Lacy number 1. And from what I've been able to gather, I think he would be their second choice. If they didn't take Torkelson, I think it would be perhaps Asa Lacy. But I just think Torkelson's bat is so good, you can't pass. I think we talked about this, Dan. Like, if you think about like Chris Bryant, who, when he was a number 2 overall pick a few years ago, crazy stat, he out-homered 3/4 of the NCAA Division I teams all by himself. But if you were evaluating those guys offensively coming out of college, you would say Spenser Torkelson was a better offensive player than Chris Bryant. So I don't think they're going to pass on him. I can't imagine how that would happen. I mean, I know some people speculated, he's advised by Scott Boras. Money could get tough. Money's not going to get tough. If I'm the Tigers and I want Spenser Torkelson, I can take him and offer him $8 million. What's he going to do? Like who's offering him more than that? They're going to get Spenser Torkelson. I will be shocked on draft night if it's not Spenser Torkelson.
And it's going to be an exciting night for Tigers fans, just based on your look at Spenser Torkelson and all the research you have done on him. Jim, it's great talking with you on this big night, and your expertise and your knowledge, and especially going back all the years that you've been watching this. It's a lot of fun to hear from you, and we appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Dan. And nice talking with you too, Matt. It's like, I love talking draft anytime. We will have to, after the draft's over, maybe you guys can have me back and we can talk about, like I'm telling you, Spenser Torkelson feels like a lock, and we can talk about the other 5 guys they got too.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Jim. And here are the Tigers' last 3 first-round picks. Matt, let's just talk for a brief moment about all 3 of these young men. And I wanted to start with Riley Greene, because there was this odd coincidence when Tigers owner Chris Ilitch was down at spring training this year. It seemed like every day that he was there, a young man by the name of Riley Greene got the invite over from the minor league camp to play in those major league games. And man, did he impress.
It made our calls a little bit more exciting, didn't it, Dan? I mean, there's no doubt about it. Here's a kid who put on 19 pounds from the Tigers first time that they drafted him, till you and I saw him at Lakeland. I think the most impressive thing with a guy like Riley Greene is this. Look at how other people respond to him. So Parker Meadows, who is a young player in the system as well. What does he say? He says he's a great teammate. He says he's always there to pick you up. Super, super talented. Going to be a Gold Glover one day. When you see that maturity, when you see a guy who has already ingratiated himself to other teammates, whether they be young or old, I think that speaks volumes about what kind of person he is and what kind of player he can be, don't you?
I really do. I mean, it was just fun to see him. He looked like he belonged. I know that's a weird thing to say about a 19-year-old kid, but I mean, he really did. Now, the other 2, we've heard a lot about Casey Mize, rightfully so, arguably the Tigers' #1 prospect at this moment. But I want fans to just not forget about, and I don't think they've forgotten about, but Alex Fado really had a pretty nice year last year at AA, a walk rate of 2, a strikeout rate of 10 in his 22 starts. This is a young man who may have been bypassed in terms of where he ranks on the list by Skubal and maybe Mize and maybe Manning. But don't forget about Alex Fado. This is a former first-round pick who still has upside, and the maturity level and the pitchability, Matt, seems like Tigers are still very excited about.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you and I have talked about a lot about these young pitchers, and we oftentimes forget about Franklin Perez, too, who looked really sharp when you and I saw him. But Alex Fado, when I spoke with Mike Rabello last year, Mike Rabello was, obviously the manager for Alex Fado in Erie. He talked about his bulldogged attitude, how he wants to compete, how he's always out there trying to get better.
Well, speaking of those 3, the last 3 first-round picks for the Tigers, Alex Fado, Casey Mize, and Riley Greene, our Heather Park is standing by with all 3 as they talk about their experiences from draft day and so far their experiences in the Tigers farm system. Heather?
All right, thanks, Dan and Matt. As you noted, I am joined by the Tigers' 3 most recent first-round draft picks. We've got Riley Greene, Casey Mize, and Alex Fado. So first, guys, I want to say thank you for joining me today. It's a big day. It's very exciting. So I'm going to jump right in. You know, it's draft day. And that means a lot of people's lives are going to change in an instant. So I want to hear about all of your draft day experience. I want to know how you were feeling, who you were with, how you celebrated. And Alex, since you're kind of the senior most member with us here today, let's start with you. Tell us about your draft day experience.
Yeah, so my draft day experience was a little different than most other guys. we were playing in Game 3 of the Super Regionals against Wake Forest, and the draft was going on during the game. And I thought I had a good chance of getting drafted that day, but I didn't know for sure, what's going on, how everyone's thinking. So I had also a good chance to pitch in the game just because it was a do or die game. And I ended up pitching the 8th and 9th inning. And after the game, after we won and dogpiled to go to the World Series, I found I was drafted by the Detroit Tigers. So it was just a great experience that I kind of felt like was like different than most other guys, and got to share with my teammates, friends, family came up to see, and it's just a little different. It was really special to me.
Wow, that sounds awesome. When did it really hit you though? Like, when did you know, like, wow, I made it to the pros?
Well, it was a little weird because we were still playing, so we still had to go to the World Series. So I didn't want to like put my mind and focus onto that with the Tigers yet. I wanted to like finish what we started with the Florida Gators, but I think once I got to go up after the World Series and go to Detroit and sign and see how cool of a city that was, and got to meet the guys on the team, how great those guys were, meet some of the front office, that's when it started to hit me like, man, I can't wait to get it started.
That's so sweet. Casey, what about you? What was it like being the #1 overall pick?
Yeah, it was crazy. It had been a long year with a lot of expectations and a lot of pressure. But when finally draft day got there, luckily I was surrounded by friends and family and teammates and everything. And when the draft rolled around and the Tigers picked me first, so it was just a ton of relief. One of the happiest moments of my life. I was super happy to share that with my family and friends and everybody there. So it was awesome. I mean, it's something I've definitely been looking forward to since I was a really young kid. To have it play out that way was awesome. And I'm super thankful for the Tigers for picking me because it was definitely just a dream come true, and I was super happy about it.
I totally believe that. And Riley, what about you? Your day wasn't so long ago, so I'm sure you remember it just as well too. Tell me about your draft day.
Well, yeah, that was one of the best days of my life. I mean, it was crazy. I just graduated high school maybe a month before that, so just being able to be picked by the Tigers and being able to go through all those things with them. I mean, it's awesome. So.
Sounds incredible. I can't even imagine what that day was like for all of you. Now I want to dive a little bit deeper into the life of a first-round draft pick. So obviously, when you guys are picked so high, all eyes are on you. It's got to be pretty hard to kind of hide when you get assigned to your first minor league team. I want to know how your teammates reacted. Did they ever say anything to you about your pick, or how was it when you first joined the club? Alex.
Yeah. Sometimes the guys will mess with you, but that's just part of the locker room atmosphere. They expect a lot from you. The coaches expect a lot from you. So you just gotta, do what you got to do to produce and show your teammates and the organization, why they trust you with the first round pick. So, every day you try to keep your head down and keep grinding, but at the same time, still be a great teammate and, still be out there and play the game the right way.
Yeah, definitely. Casey, do you have an experience like that?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely get messed with a little bit for me and high picks.
Yeah, Casey more than everyone else.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Whoa! My experience with that was kind of crazy too. I got picked on a lot.
Riley's only been there for a month. He doesn't know it yet.
Yeah.
Just wait, Riley.
Yeah, there's a lot on the way towards you, so you better be prepared for that.
So how do you guys handle the pressure of being a first round pick? Like, what do you do to prepare for that? How do you handle it all?
That's what we play the game for. Like, that's like, you want the pressure. You want to have that spotlight on you. Like, not like in an individual selfish way, but at the same time, like when people are expecting a lot from you, that like, you don't want to let those people down. You want to make sure you give it your all and you put up good numbers and you win a lot of games. So, you can, give back to the organization, your teammates, and, have them trust you.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So Casey and Alex, you both played 3 years of college ball before you were drafted. How do you think you would have handled the minor leagues if you would have come straight from high school like Riley?
Casey, you get this one first this time.
It wouldn't have been good for me, I don't think. Going to school, I needed to grow up a lot, and I needed to, physically and mentally. And so I definitely needed to go to school. But there's a lot of players who don't. And from getting to know Riley a little bit, and great person, but obviously like more of a physical build. So I just think he's adapted to it pretty well. But for me, I was opposite. I needed to put on weight, get stronger. I needed to, be in my own a bit, and I needed to prepare that way. And so I definitely needed it, but all players don't.
Yeah, I feel the same way as Casey. I felt like out of high school, I was just still like, I was only 2 years in of pitching. I was a lot weaker than I am right now. I didn't eat the right way, stuff like that. College taught me a lot just about being more on my own and, learning how to take care of myself the right way. Riley's got a good head on his shoulders, so like the Tigers fans don't have to worry. He's going to be locked in, even though he's a high school guy. But I think college is great for me and my just maturing me as a person and player, and I think it's worked out so far.
Now, Riley, it's just been a year since you were drafted. What has life been like, and how much has it changed for you?
It's changed a lot, but it really hasn't changed though. But just the traveling was a lot. I went from Lakeland to Connecticut and to Michigan, so that was a lot of traveling in 3 or 4 months. So that was a change. But it hasn't really been that hard. Just being away from family. There's guys there like Casey, Alex, all those guys. They're great guys. Take you in with open arms. They'll be there if you need anything. So you got some really good teammates behind you to help you out.
And Riley, what's it like for you playing against or playing with guys that are could be a lot older than you, 3 years older than you? What's that like?
It's pretty cool. Just from being in the locker room in the dugout with all these guys, I've learned so much. I ask questions, and during games, they'll talk to you. It's pretty cool because they know so much about the game because they've been through a lot. So
Right.
I'm just picking their brains and learn a lot of things.
That's pretty cool. Now, I know that you guys are all focused on getting into the major leagues, but I know that you guys also must have some other hobbies outside of baseball. So I want to hear what each of you like to do just for fun. So I'll start with Casey.
I play a lot of pool.
Do you really?
Table. So I've been playing a lot of pool. I tried to play video games a little. My wife didn't really like that very much, so because it took up too much of my time. So I can't play with Alex anymore. Alex is a big Fortnite guy, so
sometimes I'll get Casey on there. I know deep down he wants to be playing with the boys, so maybe we'll get him going again soon.
Oh yeah, I want to play.
It's just to the team. He's a high IQ player. Like, we need him out there. Bring good vibes.
Yeah, I'm a big flank the enemy guy and come to scoop up the loot after they kill everybody. So I don't provide much, but I come and cheer.
So you must be pretty good at pool then.
I'm getting better. I am pretty good. I'm getting better. I enjoy it. I just think it's pretty neat. And so I guess I'm better than the average person, but I still got a long way to go.
I probably believe it. I feel like there's not a lot of people that I meet that are like, oh yeah, I'm playing pool. I'm like, that's pretty cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's different, but I like it.
For sure. Riley, what about you? What are you into?
I love to fish. I bought a boat a couple months back, and I'll wake up in the morning, go fishing for like 2 or 3 hours, and I'll just go to the gym and things like that. So I love fishing. I love getting out there, getting on the boat. So
Sweet. Very relaxing.
Oh yeah, very relaxing.
Nice. Anything else for you, Alex, besides video games?
Yeah, gosh, I'm not that big of a nerd, but I do play quite a bit of video games. I usually just pick up different things. Like lately, me and my friends have playing a lot of spike ball lately.
Wait, what? What's it called?
Spike ball. It's like volleyball, but the little circle net on the ground.
I don't think I know spike ball.
Yeah, you got to get into it. It's cool.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, no. I went fishing yesterday for a little bit. Try to go to the beach when the weather's good, but I just try to stay kind of low key. I've been getting into working out, learn how to cook and eat the right way, and then just trying to get better at baseball. Really.
Awesome, you guys. So do you guys have a player that you'd like to see the Tigers take first overall?
We can't say that. We can't say
that.
It doesn't do justice to the guy that we do end up getting. Just whoever we get, we're gonna be good teammates with, and hopefully we get a good person and good player. We're excited.
For sure.
Well, what about this then? I think you can say this. What kind of advice would you give to the first round drafts tonight? Like, what would you tell them? Because obviously it's a huge accomplishment, but obviously too, there's still a lot of work to be done. So what would you tell them?
I would just say enjoy the moment. There's a lot of work to be done, but there's going to be a time and place for that. And there's not going to be a lot of days in your life like today. So I would just say enjoy it, and soak of it.
I would tell them once they got to the minor leagues, I would just say take it day by day, just because I mean you just can't keep looking ahead just because there's so much to do when you're playing in the minor leagues. So yeah, just take it day by day.
Yeah, like they said, it's only going to happen one time. So yeah, enjoy it with your friends and family. It's gonna be an awesome time. And then, I mean, like Riley said, when you're up there, don't worry about how fast you're going to get to the big leagues. Just keep getting better each and every day, and try to, be good enough for when the team calls your name. You're going to be up there, and you're there to stay, and you're going to be able to help produce and win ball games.
Awesome, guys. This was fun. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you guys back out on the ball field soon. And of course, I hope to see you playing at Comerica Park one day as well. So take care, you guys. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Yeah, thanks, Heather.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
Dan and Matt, back to you.
Thanks, Heather. As we look ahead to the draft, which is not that far away, we are pleased to welcome to our one-of-a-kind show, first-of-its-kind show, Kiley McDaniel with ESPN. Terrific writer, and he covers all things baseball, from amateur draft to prospects to trades to free agency. Kiley, first of all, thanks for your time. And we just wanted to look ahead to this draft. And I think I wanted to start before we kind of dive into what the Tigers might be able to accomplish in 5 rounds. Your thoughts on how draft strategy might change for teams, especially a team like the Tigers, who have 4 of the top 75 picks in a draft that's only lasting 5 rounds, not 40.
So I was just talking to some scouts about this, and some teams, like I know the Braves did this last year, they will look to go under slot whenever they get the opportunity. And then the thought is when you get to day 3, I guess, of the draft, rounds 11 through 50 or 40, you'll see what money you have left, what high school guys are left on the board, and you're basically deferring decisions. You want to get as many quality prospects as you can. You obviously can't do that now. Like you got, anywhere from 4 to 7 picks, depending on what team you are. You have to make every pick count, and you have to take a guy you're excited about with every pick. You can't just sort of kick the can down the road and take a guy you like, and then you'll find another guy you like more later. And so I think with the Tigers specifically, like obviously once you get past the first pick, the idea would then be if you think you're going to save a lot of money on that first one, you might have the most money of any team to offer to float a guy to that second pick. And then once you've done that, or if you don't do that, do you try to float a guy that's maybe a non-consensus player to the 4th or 5th round, spend your money there? Then how do you approach it? Do you want to go with more of a portfolio approach, mix the college and high school, the hitter and pitcher? Or do you want to just go all out and get maybe even 5 of a certain kind of player because that's what you think is undervalued this year?
Kind of your thoughts, because this is really such a different draft. And the period after those first 5 rounds are completed is going to be wide open. How do you picture that playing out?
The teams that I think are good at developing, whether hitters or pitchers or both, or the best sort of development teams, or maybe a team that's rebuilding that doesn't have a great big league team. So it's like, hey, we're pretty good at development, but we got a lot of holes, so we got some room. Or we don't have a great farm system. So like, for instance, the Yankees, very good player development, maybe the best in the league. They have a totally loaded farm system. They're about to lose a bunch of minor league affiliates based on what's happening in the CBA negotiations. They have guys that are actual prospects that might be on the chopping block. And so maybe you're saying, hey, they're going to make me better, but then I have a better chance of getting released. And so maybe a team like the Giants that have not quite as deep of a system, not quite as good of a big league team, their player development's moving in the right direction. Some agents have told me, all right, if I'm advising a guy to sign for $20K, I want a team more like the Giants that are going to be perfectly fine, probably above average in development, but I want to have a route to get to the big leagues, because if you're only signing for $20,000, getting to the big leagues a year earlier, it's worth at least $500K, maybe a couple million more. And so that is a more important element than getting the exact same amount of money, maybe a slight difference in minor league salary from team to team, but it's not that big of a difference.
Kiley, what's the strength of this draft in your mind?
The strength that it was identified probably a year or two ago, which is SEC, ACC, long track record, college players, specifically college pitching. And we just finished doing a meeting with the ESPN guys about the draft and sort of what we'll say about each guys they're picked. And we had trouble separating. There's a big group of college pitchers. I could just rattle off 10 names, but I get that that's boring, that are going to go from picks like 20 to 40. And there's going to be some high school players mixed in with them, but it's going to be like from 20 to 40, it's going to be like half of that area is going to be all college pitching of guys that in the right year, if they finish with 5 good starts, they might go in the middle of the first round, but they all have some warts in terms of consistency, relief risk, injuries, things like that, and they're all going to go in the same spot. And pretty much every team, from 20 to about 50, almost every team picks in that range. They're all going to get a shot at one of those guys.
Well, the Tigers have not yet obviously committed to Spenser Torkelson at number 1. Everybody believes that is the pick. So, Connie, we've heard terrific things about this young man. Some say this maybe is a once-in-a-generation hitter. What are the strengths of Spenser Torkelson, and what are some of the things you think about when you think of the Tigers taking him at number 1?
I mean, there are some things to pause, and it is basically around the margin for error you get with him as a prospect, which is as a somewhat maxed out right first baseman, you don't have a lot of margin for error. He actually is athletically good enough to play left field, might have enough arm to play right field. So there's a little bit of margin for error. But the story with Torkelson is he has done absolutely everything he can do for what his tools are to prove that he's worthy of the number 1 overall pick. He has basically smashed every record that can be smashed playing at Arizona State. He did 2 summers with Team USA with wood bats, has given scouts almost a year-round look at how good he is. And then you look at the actual ability, it's 70, maybe even 80 grade raw power for some scouts, which means 30, 40 homers. With the way these baseballs are, you can't rule out 50 homers. But the difference is there's a lot of guys that have that kind of power, especially in AAA. They never get a chance to hit the big leagues. The reason this guy is different is he gets to that power without huge separation. He's not loading his hands way back here, which makes it hard to make contact. He has a very short hand load to create that kind of power. And because of that, he can get to a lot of different pitches. He can cover the whole plate. He has above average pitch selection. He's probably going to have an above average walk rate. And that's why I've kind of thrown Pete Alonso out there for the casual fan that maybe isn't quite as familiar with 2080 scale type tools. That's sort of his potential. And the sort of benefit of that for the Tigers is they could use some of those hitters to really fill out the lineup for when that next playoff team will be. And if Torkelson's going to turn into that guy, whether it's on the scale from Rhys Hoskins to Matt Olson to Pete Alonso, he's going to be that guy in a couple of years. He's about as polished as they get in terms of college hitters.
What's the margin of difference in your mind between Torkelson? I know they're different players. Torkelson, Austin Martin out of Vanderbilt, a guy like Asa Lacy out of Texas A&M, or an Emerson Hancock out of Georgia. Those conveniently are usually are high on everybody's board. What's the margin between those 4 players, do you think?
The way that I try to explain this, because again, using the scouting grades is like a little opaque for some fans, is I have already slotted them on my top 100 so that you can have an idea of, we're making a big league trade. We want to get a top prospect. Where's this guy on the top 100? Mm-hmm. Torkelson, I have at 19th. I think he's sort of late in the teens. I think he's better than Andrew Vaughn, who was the 3rd overall pick and a similar player last year. But Torkelson's like a little better physicality, a little better athlete. I think he projects a little bit better, but a comparable hitter. And I think Martin, Lacy, some of the other top players in the draft, I have them like late 30s, 40s, 50s, somewhere in that range where it's clearly below him. But it is not out of consideration that 2 years from now, there could be 2 or 3 guys that pass Torkelson. And part of the reason for that is Torkelson is kind of going to be who he is. Like when I'm saying the range is, Alonso to Hoskins, those are 2 above average everyday first basemen. They're not that different. Like he's going to be somewhere in that range. Is there a chance somebody here turns into a true superstar, a 6-WAR guy, a perennial all-star, one of the best players in the league? It's possible. If somebody turns into that, they're probably going to be better than Torkelson. But I don't think anybody has like a likelihood of doing that. That's why Tork is still consistently the top pick, and I think by a pretty good margin.
Are there some other position names that you can maybe give Tiger fans to possibly look out for? A Casey Martin out of Arkansas, a guy like Nick Lofton out of Baylor, a Jordan Westberg out of Mississippi State, maybe a Daniel Cabrera out of LSU.
Well, if you're talking about excitement, there's one guy that comes to mind in this draft as a high school shortstop / pitcher out of Texas named Mason Wynn. If you look at the 2080 scale, where 80 is, it's Babe Ruth's power, Billy Hamilton speed, that kind of thing. He's a 70 runner with a 70 arm. He might be an above average shortstop. He's got above average power, and he's got the potential to be an above average hitter. But here's your coverage in case things don't work out as a shortstop. He's up to 98 on the mound. He's got a 7-grade fastball. He's got a 7-grade curveball. He's got some of the best stuff in the draft. Of those guys you mentioned, Westberg, the shortstop, Mississippi State, is the most interesting to me. Westberg is a big guy. He's got plus raw power, plus exit velos. He's a plus runner. He fits at shortstop. And the issues he's had with contact and pitch selection have been slowly improving at the highest level in the SEC, which the Tigers love. And then one other guy I think is interesting because in last year's draft, I think the Tigers made a nice pick with Bryant Packard, left fielder out of East Carolina. Another guy along those lines this year that might be there in the third round. Some teams are talking about him in the mid to late second. I think he might be there at that top of the third round pick. Is Trevor Hauver, a left fielder at Arizona State. Teams are telling me he's one of the best bets in terms of making contact in the draft, aside from those top couple guys in the draft.
Carly, that's a lot of good information. I think there's one thing we can say for sure. With 5 picks in the first 102, 4 in the first 75, the Tigers have a real opportunity here to add some serious talent.
Yeah, and I've heard some buzz that they're obviously very aware, as I mentioned, that they may not have half the lineup of their next playoff team sitting in the system right now. So I would look to them to have a bias toward taking hitters, and specifically college hitters, to fill out that system and hopefully kickstart the rebuild to really get going now. Because I think the pitching, as you know, with Mize, Manning, Skubal, Matt Boyd, like those guys are there. Those might be the pitchers on the next playoff team. But they need to fill out that lineup, and this is a good draft to do that.
All right. Our thanks again to Kylie McDaniel of ESPN. You can read him at ESPN.com, and you can watch him for the next 3 nights on ESPN's draft coverage. Right now, let's send it over to Heather Park, our second round of Detroit Tigers draft trivia. Heather?
Thanks, Dan and Matt. Now, joining me are 2 frontline heroes, Randy Jones and Samuel Seeloff, who have been working really hard in providing essential services during the COVID-19 pandemic. Gentlemen, it's so great to have you both here, and thank you for all you do. You're a firefighter, Randy, from the Detroit Fire Department. And I also know you're a big Tigers fan, Randy, so I've got to ask, who's your Tiger?
Well, my Tiger would be Sweet Lou Whitaker from the old days and Miguel Cabrera right now.
Awesome. All right, Samuel, nice to meet you. You're a registered respiratory therapist. You've been at McLaren Flint for 19 years. Who's your Tiger?
Back when I was a kid, it was Norton Cash, and then it was also Willie Horton. I forgot about him, but also Ron LaFleur as I went along, and now it's Miguel Cabrera, Randy.
Okay, guys, we are about to play a Tigers Trivia Challenge. The rules are really simple. You're going to get a question, and you're also going to get some clues if you need them. As soon as you think you know the answer, I want you to yell it out. The first person that gets 3 answers right is today's winner, and you're going to go home with a pretty sweet prize. All right, here's your first question, boys. The Tigers drafted this college outfielder in the first round of the 1978 draft. He was the pride of MSU.
Kurt Gibson.
Ooh, Samuel, 1 point for you. All right, let's keep going. What is the most common position drafted in the first round by the Tigers in the last 20 years?
Shortstop.
Nope. Don't think short term. Yes! Yes! Samuel, correct. All right, Randy, the next one's got to be for you, man. I think you can do this. Samuel, you got 2 points. Randy,
I hope so.
You're not far behind. You're not far behind. All right, here we go. Next question. The Tigers picked this pitcher with the number 2 overall pick in the 2004 draft. Old Dominion University. AL Rookie of the Year in 2006. Come on, guys. AL Cy Young. Yes!
Verlander.
Oh, no. Was that? Who said it first? Samuel. Right?
Samuel. It's a clean sweep.
Oh, Randy. I'm so sorry. Samuel knows his
that's
stuff.
Okay. Well,
that was fun either way.
I do love baseball, but I just haven't been able to keep up with the stats and all of the players the way I would like to.
Just for playing, Randy and Samuel, you're both going home with an autographed Matthew Boyd baseball. So thank you so much for joining me, and obviously thank you so much for all you're doing during this hard time.
Pleasure.
Bye. Back to you, Dan and Matt.
Thank you, Heather. And we just wanted to add our thanks to all of the frontline workers in the healthcare industry who are doing so much during this pandemic. We don't ever take your service for granted, and we do appreciate all that you do every single day.
You know, Dan, I echo those sentiments. You and I both know people in the healthcare industry, whether it be a doctor, a nurse, an EMS personnel. They're so brave. They go out there every single day. You don't hear them complain. As a matter of fact, they're trying to pick you up on a regular basis. And we see a lot of those workers at the ballpark on a day-to-day basis too. We miss seeing those smiling faces. We miss talking baseball with them. We hope to see them really soon. But in the meantime, we hope they and their families are really safe during this tough time.
Well, before we wrap things up here in our draft special, we wanted to spend a few moments giving those players who are going to join this organization in the weeks and months ahead and from this draft a little glimpse at what is in store for them when they join the Tigers organization. As fans know, this organization has spent a lot and dedicated a lot of resources to building one of, which I think now has been recognized around the league, one of the finest player development organizations in Major League Baseball. They're going to have a chance to join that organization. Let's take a look at some of the things that have been going on behind the scenes over the last several years.
When I heard my name called, I just broke down crying. It's always been my dream to play for the Tigers.
The infrastructure of the organization at both the major and minor league levels, they've seen a substantial growth, all with the player in mind.
Looking to build an environment and an organization that can have championship caliber teams on a yearly basis.
We've got so much opportunity for the players that we have drafted to start the process to get back to the World Championship.
To be honest, the opportunity at the Tigers right now is the most exciting thing. We've got a whole lot of technology, and I think the Tigers have done a really great job at investing in this technology that's really at the forefront of baseball right now.
So what we're doing here in player development with the use of this technology is you could literally see changes from pitch to pitch in bullpens, from swing to swing in a batting cage, and then take that directly onto the field.
You throw a pitch and it gives you the data of what it's doing, its movement, spin rates, spin axis, spin efficiency, all these different values that you can use to help your pitches become better or understand what they're doing and pitch to that pitch's strength.
And the resources that we have staff-wise, from analytics to video to performance to the coaches to strength and conditioning, athletic trainings, mental skills, we're going to put forth all those resources to help that player and assist him to develop and reach his goals at the end of the major leagues.
The staff there is unbelievable. I mean, a lot of knowledge. You got Hall of Famers walking around.
When you see a guy like Matt Boyd, who arguably is the leader of the staff, he's out there every morning working. The minor league coaches are out there with him and seeing what he's doing. So it's a consistent message from the big leagues on down about what's expected and what we're looking for. And I don't know that you get that everywhere where it's that cohesive.
When it comes to the facilities that the Tigers have, I mean, you couldn't really ask for any better. Down in Lakeland is the nicest facility I've ever seen when it comes to baseball.
We have so many resources in-house for the players. I mean, there's so much of it, you kind of have to pick and choose what works for you as a player.
If you want to be a big leaguer, you're going to have a lot of opportunity here to be a one.
Well, Matt, just from watching that, you can understand why Tiger fans are excited about what's going on with the Tigers minor leagues and the players in that system, and why somebody who's joining this organization might be excited about joining the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to those players, and Dan, you've lived this for decades now as the radio play-by-play voice for this special program and this special organization, is the family atmosphere. I mean, you and I feel it on a regular basis. When we come to the ballpark on a regular basis, we feel like you're part of a huge family. And these players are going to get that opportunity. There's not a better place to be. Detroit is the greatest sports city in America. They love their baseball. And the Tigers, as an original charter member of the American League, you could not ask for a better place to begin your career.
We are minutes away from the draft. Matt, I think what we have learned in this hour is that the Tigers really have an opportunity here to add a hitter who might be somebody that they build this lineup around, along with Riley Greene, for years to come, and really add some nice depth and talent with the 6 picks that they have in the 5 rounds of the draft.
Yeah, it's going to be special. They're going to have an opportunity to get some guys who Tigers fans will see soon. Now, we've talked about Riley Greene. He's a dynamic player, might not be ready for the big leagues for a couple of years, but the guys they're drafting here coming up over the next couple of days, you may see them a lot sooner than a lot of people originally thought.
Thanks to all of you for watching tonight. This has been a lot of fun. We've learned a lot, and we can't wait to see how these next few days unfold as the Tigers make that pick, which is not too many minutes away. You can watch the continuing coverage on the MLB Network and ESPN. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. Have a great night.